People go through changes or events in life, often referred to as rites of passage. When I was young, people called me Jimmy Becka. Except for those I grew up with, most people now call me Jim Becka. The name change took place when I got into radio in 1974 at KTRM in Beaumont, at that time owned by President LBJ, though he seldom visited the station. Most of my middle to late teenage years involved the beach, where my family owned a cabin. In the summer of 2008, my dad, Jerry, called and asked me to go back to the beach with my sister Judy. My dad had reached his 86th birthday and no longer had spring in his step, but his mind was still sharp. My dad says as you go through life, your days begin moving faster and faster. Our trip to the beach brought back a lot of old stories, like why my grandfather, J.J.Becka, came to the United States from a town near Prague in the Czech Republic.
Mom and Grandpa and Grandma came over for the same reason. Daddy said there was no future for him. And he worked hard and he saved his money. And of course, he made good money building houses and farming, so he had a good income and saved his money. So he bought a farm, then he bought another farm. He owned about 4 farms at one time. So he started out with nothing, but he saved his money and worked hard. And was blessed with good health, and he never was sick as far as I know, so he just worked all his life and he was successful. Well, when I got big enough, we would work. We would either chop cotton or pick cotton or do something. Milk the cow.
What about the kids? How are they all different? Who was the oldest?
John.
Okay, what about John?
Oh, he was a big guy. But when he was 16, he was about 6 foot, weighed about 200 pounds, and I was skinny. I had pneumonia when I was little, I almost died, so I was kind of a scrawny kid. Of course, I was 9 years younger, so I was a lot smaller. After John went to A&M, then he usually had a summer job, so. And Mildred went to college, and then she got married pretty young, so. And when I was big, I was home by myself.
So how'd you meet Mommy?
At the Harvest Club in Beaumont. And she was staying with her Aunt Lizzie, and Aunt Lizzie used to bring all the girls, Hallie Mae and Bitey Ann, and she took in them 1 or 2 more, Clara Mae, I think so. She brought them to the Harvest Club, and that's where I met her. They had dances there. And I liked her, so I started dating her, and then we got married.
So did Grandpa and Grandma Regan instantly like you, or did they
Yeah, they liked me. Grandma said sometimes she wished I was a Catholic. She liked me, but she wished I was a Catholic. So I guess they liked me. They never did. Of course, I think Mommy didn't. Yeah, I think I met him before we got married, but when we decided to get married, I don't think she told him about it till we got married.
She was afraid of what they'd say?
No, we figured it was our business. But the Catholic Church was real strict at that time. They had to know your life history and everything else. And you had to take lessons and everything else. And
what did you think about the rest of the Regans? Like Floyd, y'all hit it off pretty good, and all them?
Yeah, we never had any trouble. We always got along okay. They were just good people, and we all got along. I guess me and Curtis, I think we were probably closer to the Daigles than anybody, because they had more kids and more kids y'all's age. Of course, that was Mommy's younger sister. So, well, Grandpa, after he retired, he worked in the shipyard during the war. After he retired, he mostly sat on the porch with his Judy Becka, and they stayed at home.
We could run and play and had lots of room, and there's nothing like the smell of fresh hay in the barn. And we'd wait for the bus at the end of the road. And we had cats that have kittens. We'd pick cotton, but I wouldn't. I'd go get into that thing that had the cotton, and I'd take some out and put it in my bag like I'd been picking cotton. And I remember making mud pies and wetting the bed and getting whippings. And
what was school like back then? You remember? You started school there, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. We had a playground and a merry-go-round. Just Nancy Dupchok was my best friend, and we'd just skip and hop and play. One day I was at school, and there was a big commotion, and somebody said, "Yeah, that girl, she pushed that boy off and broke his arm." Come to find out, it was Carolyn. My sister had pushed a boy off and broke his arm, and they were acting like she was a big bully. But she said that he deserved it. I don't know what he did.
So Carolyn was pretty rowdy, huh?
She was a tomboy.
She was what?
Carolyn was a big tomboy.
So what did she do?
Oh, she climbed trees, climbed the clothesline pole, galloped like a horse. She was always running. I think she broke her hand too. She fell off. She was climbing that clothesline pole, and she slipped, fell, and she broke her hand.
Broke her wrist.
So where was Jerry when all this was going on? You didn't say much about him. I remember he played the clarinet back then.
He was probably reading or goofing off somewhere. He was a big reader. He used to go to the library and check out all kinds of books and read.
Just like Grandpa Becka?
Yeah.
The last day, we traveled down the Baleja Peninsula and saw our old beach cabin, which was being renovated. We stopped, ate lunch, and shared some old stories.
Yeah. We were all shopping at I guess it was Bella's house, and they had a kind of a, I don't know what you call it, had like a petition, big, what would you call it? They had sides to it, like.
The big wheel?
No, they had where they had a kind of like a petition, a wall. And then inside there they had different toys and all that stuff. And of course, Brian got on the big wheel. I don't guess anybody noticed it. So after a while we heard a commotion and looked up. The manager was chasing Brian on his big wheel. And he came running up to me to grab me and he said, "Boy, you almost got me, Paw." And the manager was just about a step two behind him. I think he was so mad, I think he would have whipped him if he could have caught him. But he never did catch him.
That's one of the best.
Well, one time I was busy doing something in the house, and the kids were in the yard playing. We lived in the apartments. And all of a sudden Tammy hollered, "Mom, Mom, Marcus is in the street." And he was playing with his ball, and so I went downstairs, because we lived upstairs. I went downstairs, pulled him out of the street and gave him a whipping. And then about 2 or 3 days later, the lady that lived next door to us upstairs came to me and said, "You know, he wasn't playing in the street. She threw his ball in the street, and he went to get it." So from then on, Tammy didn't, her name was Bess. From then on, Tammy didn't like Bess because she told on her.
And of course, I saved the best for last.